There are people who say, oh, when I go to another place, I want to explore it. I want to see the things to do. I want to learn about the history of the place. You can spend hours and hours in researching, or you can say, I book a tour with a guide. The disadvantage is that you have to keep up the schedule of the group. And it may be too long or too short for you, and it may be too early or too late for you. And this is exactly why we want to provide a solution. We want to provide you with an app that will give you audio cues, GPS based, once there's something nice around you. This is what we do to just bring your tour guide digitally onto your mobile, fully hands-free. The whole idea is really you get the most out of your vacation, the most cultural learning, the most secret spots without a lot of research and at your own schedule.
Welcome everybody to a new episode of the Mind Echo podcast, where we explore the stories, the ideas, the mindsets of different entrepreneurship industries in Germany. And today I'm quite excited to welcome Melanie Hagen. She's the co-founder of Roadstory, a GPS-based audio guide designed to make road trips unforgettable. Melanie grew up in northern Germany with quite a clear vision for a career that offered her flexibility, variety, quite a broad learning path. She studied business administration with a focus on trade management in the Berlin School of Economics and Law. Then she began her career in the corporate world, working at Karstadt, where she was working on topics like implementing automated replenishment processes for retail. Then she made the next move in her career to SAP, where she spent over 16 years in various roles. Of course, some of them in the direction of leadership as well. From consulting, IT architecture to sales management, she was working with some of the biggest retail and fashion brands. And her work opened doors to her to international experiences, including years in Mexico, shaping her cultural perspective and leadership style. And although Melanie's corporate journey was, as she was mentioning in our introduction call, quite fulfilling and varied, she always carried this entrepreneurial spark, I must say. Inspired by an experience she had while traveling abroad, she saw the opportunity in Europe to establish what is now a hands-free, on-the-road storytelling experience for, let's say, cars, for bikes that lets travelers or explorers explore at their own pace. So starting Roadstory as a side project, she basically co-founded this company a year ago, and recently took the decision to leave the corporate life to focus on it full time. The first public guides are planned for the moment for the Ruhr area, plan to move on in the upcoming or in the autumn season, holiday season, with the mission to test what actually travelers prefer. And while the market is still young, based on the pre-discussion we had, I think that Melanie sees that as a part of the adventure ultimately. So really learning, adapting, and shaping something which is something entirely new also for this market. So Melanie, welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Alonso. I was really looking forward to having our conversation, and also thank you for the warm words of welcome.
As I mentioned in the introduction call, I think that the storyline, the journey you've had and where you're currently at, I'm pretty sure it's going to be quite interesting as we move on for our listeners today. Where is your right now as of today?
My head right now as of today. I think it's very, very much the full day and every day of the week towards starting our autumn season go live in the Ruhr area to really launch the stories, launch the app, the audio guides. So it's all around testing, all around are our routes nice? Do we have enough good stories to tell? Are people enjoying it? What will be the price points? Do we have people who cooperate with us because we need some people with reach for marketing? So it's really, all over the go live.
And do you have already rough date that you want to go ahead or still on the making?
Well, the rough date would be October 7. So that's right before the North Rhine-Westphalia autumn holidays.
All right.
Just to be sure that, when people have time and leisure to enjoy the area they live in, or maybe even visit the Ruhr area, it's becoming a bit more popular with tourists, that they have something that they can use and that our offer is ready to go.
Makes lots of sense. And I would say let's dive in understanding how, let's say, the whole process is looking like you mentioned, having 1,000 things in mind just to make sure that launch, the go lives goes in the right direction. But I think we will have in the next minutes enough time, I trust, to try to explore and understand in deeper sense how this is actually looking like, try to understand in different angles the business idea and how do you see things moving forward. But before we I'm going to that, I would say, and that's something that I mentioned up front. I think it's quite interesting to know where you're coming from. And the first question that I had in mind was you grew up in northern Germany. So going all the way back to the earlier part of your story, how was your hometown? How was the environment you grew in?
Okay, so the town that I originate from is named Kiel. For those who may not be all too familiar with German geography, that's almost in Denmark, so even beyond the north of Hamburg. And it's situated right at the Baltic Sea. So I grew up with a lot of rain, a lot of wind, and also when the weather was nice, the most beautiful place on earth because you could directly go to the beach. Kiel itself is a city of roughly K inhabitants. So it's not really rural, but it's also far away from really being a metropolitan area where you can do and experience a lot of things, right? It's a
Hmm.
rather small town. And hence I grew up always having the craving of, okay, I need more action. I need more things going on. And I was very much destined to leave and explore the world. So already at 16, I spent a year in Michigan as an exchange student where I was, well, I think for a teenager, I had a lot of drive behind that because I applied for scholarships and even got a partial scholarship just to really make sure it works out and I have that chance to spend some time abroad.
Hmm.
And so I did, which was not, let's say, sufficient.
Hmm.
So you might think, oh wow, now she spent a year abroad, now she's calm, now she can stay in Kiel. But that didn't happen. I went and made my, as you know, in Germany, Abitur, which is the finishing of school to allow you to go to study and university. And after I did that, it was clear for me, I'm not staying in Kiel. I'm going to search for a place to study where I can be in a bigger place and experience things. And there are more or less two options that you have when you are in Germany, which is Hamburg or Berlin.
Hmm.
Hamburg felt too close to home, so I ended up
All right.
living in Berlin and doing my studies in Berlin. And that was the time you have to imagine was around 2002 to 2005. So it was not right after the reunion, but also still way before the times that we have now. So Berlin
Right.
was still loud and ugly and raw. And it was really, really exciting to be there because so many things were happening and so much creativity was going on and things were just in the making. So that was a very, very nice time, very exciting to be there as a young adult.
Hmm.
And then I got a job offered in the Ruhr area. And as the man I met there, who I'm still with, who is my husband and father of my children, originates from the Ruhr area, we said, okay, I have a job offer there. He originates from there. Why not go there? And so I ended up living in the Ruhr area and still here, still enjoying it. I think there are way too many prejudices around this area, so I can just spoil you. I see no factories and there's no smoke. It's actually
True.
a really nice metropolitan area with a lot of parks and rivers and seas, and you can really spend a good time here. And again, as much as I enjoy it, it was not enough to be in one place for me. So
Right.
this explorer thing, it's just sitting in me. So I was looking for a new job that would allow me while working to explore the world. And that's how I came into the world of consulting. I think if you are someone who wants to combine working and traveling, consulting is just the right working area for you because you end up working where your client is.
True.
And I was lucky to land with SAP, which is a company operating globally. So the clients I was working with were sitting globally.
Hmm.
And that's how I came to even further explore the world. And you just mentioned I spent a couple of time in Mexico, but also I went to many other places around Europe, around Latin America. So I was really in many, many places and I enjoyed this really, really a lot. And I also enjoyed a lot the work that I was doing because what I was doing was very much focused on improving the way that retailers order. And so if you are in a job field where you can, on the one hand, actively engage into technology, which is very exciting, plus explore the world, which to me personally was very exciting, plus do something which is good, which is the reduction of waste.
Mhm.
Because if you have better future predictions and better orders, then obviously you throw away less. That was very fulfilling, and it was a very, very good time, very good years for me. And still, because I'm always someone who is looking to develop and learn something new, I think the topic of
Right.
learning is something that's very important for me. At some point, I said, I've been doing this for many years now, and it has been very fulfilling. Still, I want to do a change for me personally. And so I went into sales.
Mhm.
What I had been delivering before as a consultant, I was then practically selling. So I was selling projects to retailers to make their digital transformation happen, to help them to run their business better, to operate more efficient, or also to find new fields of opportunity with their customers.
Right.
And as you mentioned in the introductory, that was the time period where I discovered something on a road trip. So I was traveling and I was doing a road trip, and it was in the US, and I used an app which was a GPS based audio guide. And I found it so wonderful to, while I was completely self independent, still learn about the places I was going to, that when I was on vacation the next time in Europe, I was desperately searching for something
Right.
that would give me the same experience in Europe.
Mhm.
And it was impossible to find. Well, being someone who likes to learn and who likes to explore, I started to explore, hey, can I bring this to Europe?
Mhm.
I realized quickly that just taking what was existing in the US and transferring it to Europe wouldn't work. Because when you look at a US national park, you have two streets and you have three waterfalls and you have one geyser and maybe another mountain peak. Pretty straightforward. And when you look at Europe, you have a super complicated street network. You have also sites that have this huge variety between cultural experience, nature experience, food experience, and other highlights that I realized, okay, I kind of need to start to do this from scratch. I
Mhm.
cannot just simply copy. And as you just listened, I do have a very data driven experience, but I'm not a developer.
Mhm.
I had to look for a co-founder first, for someone who would be willing to do the same. And I found that with Thomas, who is my co-founder, who is a super technical person, who is a technical architect, who knows how to develop. And we took it off as a side hustle last
Mhm.
summer. So we very quickly had a, let's say, proof of concept. We realized, okay, technically we can make this work.
Mhm.
And then we kept on just going step by step, worked with the first startup incubator, still as a side hustle, but to kind of shape our business model, have the first marketing coachings. We worked with this accelerator based in Bochum, which was a very good experience for us and actually taught us a lot. Especially it taught us how to keep on validating our idea, right? How to find out, is there a market for it? Are people really interested? Who would we work with?
Mhm.
And while going step by step, I became more and more confident. Okay, this is something that can actually work.
Mhm.
And then this year I had the chance to actually go full time. That opened a window of opportunity for me to take some savings and live off them until we are live. And so I said, well, let's dive in, do it now or never. You have the confidence that it can work. You have the window of opportunity now. And when you're retired and you look back, you will probably be more angry about the things you did not do than about the things you tried and that failed. So I just jumped, and now I'm a 100% entrepreneur and not a side hustle entrepreneur anymore.
Mhm. Quite and thanks a lot for walking us through your journey. So definitely quite some themes to touch upon. And I'm looking forward to dive into those. So let me break down the introduction, how you walk us through right now from where you started to where you're currently at. And let's maybe I would be quite interested to understand a bit the motivations on maybe what actually took you to take some decisions, or try to even go in a further detail in some of those pieces that you just shared with us. So I start with the part that you had always, or you were always keen about exploring the world, seeing what's further away from home, getting exposed to different experiences, like you mentioned, going at 16 to Michigan. And I was wondering, was there in your family somebody that was kind of your role model towards trying to seek these kind of experiences in life, or you kind of just grew up and thought, this feels just right, and that's why I want to pursue that?
I think in my family, it's two extremes that are in our DNA. There's the one extreme, stay where you are and enjoy it because you just really live in the moment and enjoy it. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
also positive if you're happy where you're at, right? And the other part of the family is the extreme opposite and explore as much as you can.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't say there's like one role model in my family. We have expats who went to Australia. We have expats who went to UK. We have expats who went to Italy. And even within Germany, there are some who moved around, right? One of my
Right.
uncles also living in the Ruhr area. Another one lived in Berlin, who obviously was good to have as a connection when I lived there. So I would say part of my family is really very distributed along. And if I look at the other part of the family, even if I say it's staying
Mm-hmm.
in a certain place and enjoying it, when I look at the jobs that they do, they are also kind of explorer jobs. So my maiden name is Fischer, which is the German
Mm-hmm.
translation of fisherman. And actually, half of my family is still working on fisher boats.
All right.
So happy in Kiel, living in Kiel, but going on the sea, which is also quite an adventure actually to go on the sea, right? There's a certain kind of risk always to it. And hence, I would say it's running a bit in our DNA.
Okay. All right. By the way, still a place that need to visit. Based on what you shared and having part of your family being more of the explorer in the shape of actually deciding to being a bit further away from home or Germany, then that kind of shows or explains a bit where you can have gotten some impulses, I would say. But that's addressing the angle of wanting to explore beyond away from the place you grew up. From the aspect of your interest and trying to maybe connect the dots on where you are right now, did you had an idea, or were you at one moment envisioning earlier in the earlier times that you would like to have your own business at one moment, or this just developed over time?
I think it more developed over time, but when you see exploring, not only in a, let's say, physical kind of exploring the world space, but also in a mental learning and exploring fields of experience space, then, like many people, when they grow up, they have some profession that they want to be, right?
Right.
I want to be a doctor, or when they are small, I want to be a fireman, or things like that.
Right.
And I never had that. I
Mm-hmm.
never had that one thing that I wanted to do. And when I was a teenager, I was actually still struggling. What is it that I want to do? And I was always thinking, hey, I'm kind of born in the wrong century, because what I would really like to do is something like Alexander from Humboldt kind of style, go to places that at least Europeans don't know much of and explore not only the geography, but also the biology and the heritage, and just really learn about many, many different things all the time as a job. That was always where I thought this would be the perfect job for me, but we're not in the right century anymore. I cannot do that.
True.
And that's actually how I ended up with business administration, because I decided I want to do a job or to learn a field on university that just gives me many options. And that's what business administration does, right? You can go into so many industries or fields of specialization that you're really very flexible. And hence I ended up in business administration. Well, many people would say that when you're in business administration, entrepreneurship is maybe not too far away.
Right.
Are actually people going into the field of business administration having that exactly in their mind? I would like to be an entrepreneur at some time. For me, I think I never had that one idea that
Okay.
really had the spark in me to really do it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So when I came into touch with business administration and this entrepreneurship topics, in the university, I said, oh, that would be nice to have my own company someday.
All
But
right.
over many years, I was on the one hand so fulfilled by what I was doing. And on the other hand, there was not the one spark idea, that's it, that I was just happy the way it was.
Yeah, and that I can. So firstly, thanks for sharing on that angle, and I can fully understand, especially based on what you mentioned, what you were looking for, and then the breadth of opportunities that the step afterwards in the shape of what the corporate world offered to you. I think that indeed brought many opportunities, right? That you could grew through. But let's say once you jumped in that corporate career, like you mentioned, you were working in different roles, in different functions. But if you look back into those roles, and then if you look into yourself right now and the kind of thinking process you need to go through when really trying to drive a business forward, what kind of roles from your corporate career think and what kind of skill set that you developed of those years do you think serve you well right now?
I think it's mainly two things that serve me very well right now. Obviously, when you're starting a startup, you need to sell your idea. You need to
Hmm.
sell your idea even before you have a product because you need
Right.
people that help you on the way. So everything that I learned when I was in sales as an account manager, but also later as a team lead, helps me so much. I think there are many people starting their own business who are afraid of selling. They are actually not afraid of selling. They are more afraid of the rejection that you can receive when you do sales.
Mm-hmm.
And I was already beyond that point when I started my company because I had gone through all the ups and downs that you have in sales. I have gone through having not so nice numbers and I have been going through having very good numbers. So I knew the cycle. I knew the ups and downs. I know where one door is shutting, you can open another one. And even if a door is shut in sales, that doesn't mean it stays shut forever. It only means it's shut right now. It can
Right.
open up later. So I had all of these learnings. And this is obviously very important because you sell your idea like to maybe startup incubators that help you on the way, that give you some funding. You sell your idea, like in our case, sometimes also to public institutions because we have a scholarship from the country of North Rhine-Westphalia to support us in our working. And obviously also you sell it to the people you hopefully later buy your product when it's ready.
Mm-hmm.
And this is extremely helpful that I don't have this fear of sales that, at least in what I observe, many founders seem to have.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing that's super helpful, you can imagine Europe is large. How do you get all that touristic data?
Right.
I mean, that's also a big question for us. How do we
Mm-hmm.
get the data? Is the data in a good quality? Can we use it or do we need to change it? Do we need humans for certain things that review
Mm-hmm.
what we are doing? What can we automate? As I had been working before sales with these machine learning solutions that
Right.
helped automate sales forecasting and ordering for retailers, I'm obviously all into these data topics.
Mm-hmm.
Where do we get the data from? Is it nice or can we maybe not work with it? And at what point do we need human interaction?
Right. Yeah, I think indeed if I look again into the profile and transition you had, and if I connect maybe from other startups, every founder comes with a different skill set. But what I think, especially if you're going into developing something in the area of tech, of service, this interface between understanding the technical part to a certain degree and the complexity it may carry on what is important, but on the other hand side, to also have given you time to grow in understanding the side of the business as well, that plays quite well into your advantage, right?
Absolutely. And I think it's also why the co-founding with Thomas is working so well because it gave us these exact areas of where each of us has their own strengths, right? Thomas, being a technical architect and being a developer, he's very much into future-proofing our technical foundation, very much into building things that are stable and robust, and also very much into going step by step, very agile. And where he's absolutely not into is anything sales, anything
Mm-hmm.
pitching, anything being on stage and presenting. That's if he has to do it, he does it and he does it well, but he really doesn't enjoy it at all. And if it's getting too deep technical, then I'm like, that's not interesting to me anymore. I prefer to work with humans. Let me please speak to someone. Can I just pick up the phone instead of looking onto that database? So we are very much opposite in our strengths, which for a founder team is actually a good thing if you're combining strengths and not if you're having the exact same profile.
Yeah, I agree. And I was about to go to other direction, but maybe let me stay briefly on the side of co-founder because I marked this from the introduction that you mentioned. Maybe can you share a bit where did you have the chance to get to know Thomas and how did this relationship built?
Yes. So what happened was I had the idea. I wanted to bring it to Europe, but I didn't really have someone who would have been the co-founder I was looking for. Obviously, I knew a lot of developers personally, being at SAP. The disadvantage was, however, that they were physically all rather far away from me,
All
right?
right.
All sitting in Waldorf or even in China, in Palo Alto. So I was like, okay, I know a lot of developers, but when I want to do a co-founding, then I know there are sometimes creative topics where you need to be in the same room. And sometimes you also have to make tough decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also better when you can see each other straight into the eyes when you do that, especially when you may not agree on the decision in the first place. So I wanted to have someone also from the Ruhr area to found. And when you start diving into the founder space, then you will see that many cities, be it Munich, be it Hamburg, be it Berlin, it's actually all around, have matchmaking events.
Mm-hmm.
People who have a business idea and want to look for a co-founder, or people who say, hey, I want to be an entrepreneur, but I'm looking for an idea, that they can find each other. So I went to these matchmaking events and I met a lot of nice people. I got a lot of creative input. However, I didn't meet a co-founder yet.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got an advice on one of these matchmaking events, which was, hey, do you know that you can look for co-founders online? There are two platforms, Y Combinator, which is maybe more international,
Right.
and Foundario. Foundario is, I think, more in the area of Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. And maybe you just post your idea there and see if someone likes it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did that. I went on these platforms and I posted my idea and said, hey, I'm looking for someone who's technical, who's critical thinking, who likes open but polite feedback. So I think you always need to be very open about things that are good or not so good, but, be kind to each other so
Right.
that you are in a very open, transparent, efficient working mode. And I was looking for someone not just developing, but really be a sparring partner for me to
Mm-hmm.
be founder of that company. And Thomas, he was looking for an idea.
All right.
He was looking for, because there are often people who just search a developer and please just develop what I say and switch your brain off.
Mm-hmm.
He was obviously looking for someone who was looking for a real co-founder and not just for a developer for free.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we first met online, realized, okay, these profiles seem to match. And the idea was also something that intrigued Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
And as we are both in the Ruhr area, we then quickly met in person to just speak, see if we have the same ideas, the same understanding. And we said, okay, let's try it. Let's work together for a few weeks and see if it goes well.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just day by day, week by week, that the trust to each other grew. There was not this one big founding moment. It was, I explained what I was looking for the idea. Thomas, obviously, I mean, most of us have traveled yet, had his own ideas, how he would enjoy it as a
Sure.
tourist. And then he built a prototype and we went on family vacations. Thomas went to Greece. I went to France. I prepared some travel content for Greece, for France, and
All
we
right.
tested it independent with our families and both really saw the value in it. And that's just how it grew step by step. And then I think it was when I applied for that startup incubator then in late autumn where I said, hey, Thomas, do we really want to do this? Because then I will start to spend much more time on it. And he
Mm-hmm.
said, oh, let's do it. And it just grew week by week.
Okay. Interesting. I mean, I think just in the topic of co-founders and how you actually grow into this working, let's say, partnership, you can spend quite some time, I would say, considering all the different factors that go around. But interesting to hear your take on that and to see where the journey took both of you as of where you are at the moment, which at the end led then that you continue working together and continue to move forward towards the upcoming launch go live as discussed at the beginning of Roadstory. But maybe here we are on a good point in the conversation to start bridging towards the business idea. It would be great if you could just take a couple of minutes to explain the listeners what's really about, how do you currently see this supporting the users in the future?
So I all want you to think of vacation right now. I know we're talking business, but sometimes it's nice to think about vacation. And there are some people, which is fair, who enjoy to spend 2 weeks on the pool of a nice hotel and that's it. And then there's those people who say, oh, when I go to another place, I want to explore it. I want to see the things to do. I want to learn about the history of the place. I want to hear some fun facts. I want to learn about it. And then you have two options basically as a tourist. You can spend hours and hours in researching. So you can go on your TripAdvisor and your Google Maps, or maybe you even buy a printed travel guide. Or you can say, no, I really don't have time and I don't enjoy all of this research. I book a tour with a guide and then I go on this tour. And when you do that, the disadvantage is obviously that you have to keep up the schedule of the group. You have to go at the time that the group starts. You have to spend at the places that the group enjoys, the time that the group stays there. And it may be too long or too short for you. And also the start may be too early or too late for you. And as most people don't afford an exact private tour, but are with other people, maybe you even do not like the people that you're with. Even
That's
that
right.
can happen. So there's also a lot of reasons to travel on your own or with your family, spouse, friends, whoever is with you, and not to join a guided tour in a group. And this is exactly where we want to provide a solution. So we want to provide you with an app that will give you audio cues, GPS based, once there's something nice around you. So what you do is you select your tour. I'm traveling Toscana right now. So give me the tour, highlights of Toscana and winery. And then you start the navigation and you will hear, oh, next crossing to the left, there's 3 times gold prize winning Chianti winery if you want to visit. And then another kilometer onwards, you will hear, oh, by the way, in this small church is an early picture of Michelangelo. So if you want to beat the crowds in Florence, stop here and look at it and enjoy it on your own. So this is what we do to just bring your tour guide digitally onto your mobile. And as it is GPS based, it's fully hands free. And that means you can use it in your car. You can also use it on your bike. I mean, with e-bikes also having a tour on your bike is actually becoming increasingly popular. And you can also use it walking. I think walking, there's also other options already with QR codes. But still, we want to ensure that if someone has used it in the car, that they can still take the app with them when they leave the car, right? So also walking tours are something that is important for us. And the whole idea is really you get the most out of your vacation, the most cultural learning, the most secret spots without a lot of research and at your own schedule. And being a startup, we go step by step. So our step is now having these static tour suggestions and have them in the Ruhr area. And we want to bring it from a content perspective all over Europe. And from a feature and functions perspective, I think this is already pretty new and not a market that exists. But looking 5 years into the future, having static tours maybe is not enough. So we want to make sure that over the time, we also build features for personalization so that when 5 years down the road, you start your tour in, let's say, the south of Spain, you just say, hey, I want to go somehow from Marbella to the Alhambra. Please don't give me more than 2 hours of pure driving time. What I enjoy most is culinary and hiking. And then you dynamically get your suggested tour and audio guide. So this is the target. Again, step by step. Maybe some of you have heard of the lean startup principle. So do your step, validate if it works well, and from that draw your conclusion for the next step. This is what we're doing.
All right. Thank you very much for walking us through the idea. And I was in parallel already thinking myself about the situations in which I've been together, for example, with my wife, in which I mean wherever we are the kind of people that we like to mix our trips in the way of ensuring we have quite relaxing time part of it, but on the other hand side we try to combine also by getting to know the places and try to understand what are the highlights from different places and really try to get ourselves immersed into that. And for example, I was just thinking of recently we were in Verona in Italy, and that's indeed where I was trying to make the parallels. We are normally walking a lot around different places, and was just thinking that could be a really cool solution in which you could just connect to that and try to make it more flexible and tailored to your needs. And especially, like you mentioned, there are all sort of tastes. I'm the person that does not like to be part of the tour group. So that's why I think, at least as mentioned, depending on each one, this may vary. But for me, also see the advantage from that angle. So no, quite interesting. And looking forward how this develops on the first stage. Like you mentioned, there is a vision and where this could be headed to, but of course need to focus on bringing this step by step. But maybe my immediate next question would be trying to understand how this process has been developing to the current stage that you are. So once you came up with this need based on your own experience, and once you get started to think that that could actually materialize into a business idea, how does one take this process of converting this idea into a concept, into an MVP, and really to say, okay, this makes sense, let's bring it to life?
So before I answer that, just reacting to something you just said, you're not the kind of person that enjoys too much the guided group tours. I think that's many people. And you also have many people who just cannot join guided group tours because there's nothing offered in their language, or maybe they have a hearing impaired or are visually impaired. So that's also where we see there might be even people who would join a group tour, but they just can't. That's
Right.
actually also a large group of people which we hope to make happy with our app.
Makes sense.
Yes. And how did we validate? How did we come from idea to business? That's where the accelerator of the Ruhr University was helping us a lot. So there was an accelerator, and we were really just in that idea stage. We said, we have an idea, right? And that was what this accelerator was aiming for. It was giving you coaching for the stage of you have an idea. So now what's next? And they said, all right, if you have this idea, then what's your first take? Will it be B2B or B2C? And our idea was obviously inspired by what I had seen in the US. Well, this will be a B2C business. It gives an additional benefit to tourists, and it will meet those people who would normally be willing to spend money on maybe a tour guide to spend money on this audio tour. So we said, we think it's B2C, and also looking at museums, because you have many audio guides in museums and people are also, they're very willing to pay for the audio guides. We said, this is going to be a B2C business. And then this accelerator, they gave us the advice, okay, now if you want to validate that it's really B2C, you have to make surveys. And that's what we did. So we went on social media, and we
All right.
also went into, well, if you are in Germany, then you may be sometimes a bit chuckling around all these Vereins,
True.
all these clubs that we have. You know, there's this joke, what do two Germans do when they are on a isolated desert island where they found a Verein, a club? That's the first thing that they will do. And so we went also, because I'm a member of a sports club,
All right.
also into this network. So we asked into this huge sports net club network and also a lot of social media. And we made a survey where we asked very few questions, right? We explained the concept in brief words. And then we asked, would you use an app like Roadstory? And on this question, like 90% said, yes, I would use such an app.
Interesting. Okay.
Then the next question was, because you would only see question by question in the survey, would you pay money to use such an app? which is obviously a big hurdle, right? And on that, roughly 60% still
Okay,
answer, yes,
but
I would
still.
pay money to use such an app. Then our next question is, well, then how much money would you spend?
Mm-hmm.
And there the answer was more or less what you would also spend on a printed guidebook.
Mm-hmm.
And the last question that we asked was very open, right? It was not yes, no, not a number, no, nothing. The question was very open. Is there anything that would keep you from using such an app? And there we obviously got a lot of interesting responses. And the most interesting response was if I have to, oh, now I'm lacking the English word. In German, it's Abonnement. So you have a recurring payment every month.
Like membership or
Exactly.
subscription.
Subscription. Thank you. So subscription was a very common answer there because they said, I wish on 52 weeks of vacation every year, but I don't have it. So a subscription is not good. And so we listened to that and shaped our business model and said, all right, then it seems to be right to go for B2C. Seems to be right to sell, let's say, regions as a bundle, as a one-time download, which then obviously is as a one-time much more expensive at first, like a subscription, but it's not a subscription. And that wasn't there for us. We wanted to be even more sure. So we built a landing page that was Q1 this year, where we made some early bird offering, where we said, hey, we're still building. The product is not there yet, but if you buy now, then you get a rebate.
Mm-hmm.
And many people actually hit the buying button, even though we're not making a lot of marketing,
All right.
but many people that somehow know that we exist. You
Mm-hmm.
know, this kind of friends of friends, cousin of my soccer trainer, these kind of people,
Mm-hmm.
they actually hit the buy button.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have, well, it's a 3-digit number by now in sales by not making any marketing. So I think that was also quite proof for us to
Mm-hmm.
go B2C and to just follow that way through.
No, interesting, and thanks for sharing. And that again proves the importance of running this market validation at that kind of early phase, especially because of the kind of insights it gives you. I mean, at the end, of course, once you are going live and then everything is now open and available to everybody, that's where you, of course, are going to start getting even more valuable feedback from the users on really understanding what makes sense in terms of further enhancements and developments. But that definitely plays a really important role. Another angle that I wanted to ask you is, let's say, the experience or the service that you're going to be putting at the hands of people will require quite some efforts on content creation. And I'm wondering, how are you planning to tackle
Yes.
this part of the service?
Absolutely. Yep. So we are right now in a stage of, let's say, 50-50 between human and machine for content creation in the Ruhr area. And that was one reason for us to start in the Ruhr area, that we just know the places here. We know what is worthwhile visiting and where can you maybe skip it if you are in a rush. And we took that knowledge of points of interest, so POIs. And we took these POIs, drafted some routes to it, and then used AI for several things. We used AI for research of the places, for
Mm-hmm.
providing us descriptions, and also for text to speech. Because if we want to be multilingual in future, text to speech is the most quickest option.
Right.
And text to speech is also a good option. And I think that's a huge difference maybe to other audio guides if you need to make updates. So for keeping things current, to speech is just the best solution for us in our mind. And it's still 50-50 because you rely a lot on the human knowledge of the good places to look at, the human knowledge on what are routes that you can drive, and also the human, you know how it is. AI, it sometimes fantasizes. You have like 80% accuracy and 20% fantasy when you use
Mm-hmm.
AI content. So to validate all of that, that's still very human interaction. And we need to get more to a 80-20, 80% machine, 20% human in future. So what we plan to do is we plan to build our custom POI database.
Mm-hmm.
And this database shall consist of different sources of data. For one, there's a open data graph projects in the tourism industry, where you have open source databases that have been maintained by so-called DMOs. So that's some tourist speak, destination marketing organization. So
Okay.
if you have something like the destination marketing of Munich, they will put information into that open data place,
Interesting.
database. So this is some data that we want to use. But again, and please excuse my language here, but sometimes it's shit in, shit out with data.
Right.
So when you look at it from this open data perspective, then it's a decentral maintenance. And decentral maintenance means some DMOs will put very qualified information in. Some DMOs will put no information at all in. And other DMOs will just put anything in it. May it be a place where you can go to the Louvre, may it be a burger restaurant. So they will put just anything in it, which means it's a wonderful pool of data, but we will need to look also into other pools, maybe other open data projects like wiki places, or maybe even use some paid sources from travel bloggers, etc., to first have a, let's say, complete data coverage. And then we are planning to use the sentiment on these places to throw out the garbage. So maybe you have heard about social sentiment tools.
Yeah.
They are more popular in e-commerce actually, right? So that you see the sentiment towards your brand, toward trends and all of that. And we figured out, well, we want to try if we can just transfer it from goods that people buy to places that people talk about, that they enjoy or maybe not enjoy, right? Crawl the reviews
Right.
and all that sentiment so that we have something like a ranking and judgment and filter of the places. So this is where we want to come to the situation that not the human needs to know all of the places anymore, but we already get a good suggestion from our AI. Then we are playing around with the different language models at the moment. One of these language models make good route suggestions. You may be surprised, the coordinates, the longitudes and the latitudes that AI is suggesting to you, it's very often far away from where the place actually is. So it's very hard to trust on the routes that you get from AI. So this is where we are just playing around with different LLMs now to find the right LLM that gives us the best coordinates so that also the route suggestions are getting better. And then for fact checking the description, we want to use some agents that actually compare the text that has been created with the actual facts that you can find in online resources, right?
Right.
This is what we want to do to automate as much as we can. And still we say there needs to be then another 20% human in it. Because there's always some secret spots that AI hasn't found. Like right now, you actually mostly get highlights. If you only ask ChatGPT, hey, give me a road trip through Tuscany,
Right.
you will get the absolute highlights, but then you drive 45 minutes without any POI suggested, right?
Exactly.
So it's just way too superficial sometimes. And that's why we say for the secret spots, we still need human. And we want to have this on two pillars. For one, we want to work with travel experts.
Okay.
Like right now, we are talking a lot to the DMOs of the Ruhr area, right? We're talking with the city marketing of Bochum or Essen, all these city marketings that really know their places. So they sometimes support us. And where they do not support us, then we obviously need to look into, okay, are there other experts for that area that want to work with us? And we want to have a community feature as well. And you are using the app, you can, for one, rate the places that you've been to and also suggest places. Because then when we see, oh, this place has been suggested now 4 or 5 times, we should add it, then we have the opportunity. As you can see, very data driven, but I don't think that will work without the human. It's the best assistance you can ever get with AI, but it stays an assistance.
Yeah. No, and thanks for connecting the dots to that part. That was something I also wanted to get your take on. But yes, I share a similar, not only from this specific angle, but for other kind of applications or instances, that finding that balance between the kind of machine and human interaction, it's where you will need to find your sweet spot on where you find the most suitable workflow, which at the same time brings efficiency towards on how you can bring your what you actually require to support the business, right? So maybe one more question there that I made a note from our, but I know it may be tricky right now because you will need to explore a bit further how that develops. But I took from my notes something that you mentioned about having to check what may be the demand moving on in terms of actually offering kind of like a highlight tours. While on the other hand side, when thinking of what you mentioned of the direction of personalization, kind of offering theme experiences or themed tours. And I suppose that's something that it will be interesting to see how it develops. And probably once you start seeing who is your ultimately user base, right?
Yeah, you absolutely described it the right way. We know that we know nothing, right? I mean, that is
Exactly.
just to say it very bluntly and open. So the Ruhr area, it's a bit of our test laboratory.
Right.
And we plan to offer tours that are the highlights. And we also plan to offer tours that are more themed, like visit the most beautiful, lightened Ruhr area places by night, or have a specific tour for Christmas markets, have a specific tour for industry heritage. And then we want to see what of those perform better so that we can understand what are the people actually looking for. Do they want more the theme topics? Because that would mean that we would have to be very quick with the personalization features, and
Right.
maybe our geographical scaling needs to be slowed down. Or is it that people are very much looking for the highlights? Then it would make much more sense to put all the energy into geographical scaling and put personalization and theme features more at the end of our development.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. But yeah, I suppose that's still early on the journey to be able to make a substantiated judgment, but that's something probably that it's gonna come as you move forward. In terms of I mean, you mentioned that when you were validating the idea, you were reaching out, you run this survey, and then you were trying to reach out to people through different means. You have a website established, but moving on or thinking on the go live in autumn, um, and moving on from there forward, what do you have in mind in terms of let's say continue to reach out to potential customers? Have you already made up your mind what kind of channels do you want to double down on? Would be curious about this kind of go-to-market approach you want to follow.
The go-to-market approach is currently with a big focus on talking to the destination management people, right? The one who are actually in charge in the cities of bringing tourism forward. And we talk to them a lot for many reasons. For one, because they are very open, and I'm very thankful for that, to sharing experience. What do the tourists here like? What do they not like? Some of them are even so open that they say, oh, we have been waiting for something like that to offer it to our tourists because we don't have enough tour guides and enough languages and all
Hmm.
of that. So they are even happy to help us with marketing, that they, in the tourist information, recommend our tours, that they introduce us to all the hotels in the area, because as you know, in hotels, very often you find these flyers. One destination management even said, hey, we are going to print the flyers for you. They even
Well,
that far. So this is something which is very important for us to speak to the people who are actually in charge and who are being paid
right,
by the cities to bring tourism forward, right? Because we have a reach of exactly zero, and we
right,
need to find the people that have reach.
sure,
Yes. And the other thing, when it comes to cooperation is to talk to people who make special events here. Like we are talking to people who are organizing city hikes, who are organizing marathons, these kind of things, because there's the professional athlete, athletic side to it. And there's also the fun athletic side to it. And especially the city hikes, people enjoy doing them because they see something of the city. So
right,
we speak to those people. And what we will do a lot as well is PR, press related work. So fingers crossed that enough local newspapers, blogs, and radio stations will find this is interesting. I will make a small article for that, but we will give it a try, right? This is something that we want to do. And yeah, that is how we are proceeding at the moment, trying to find people who want to bring tourism forward as well, who like the idea of digital tourism and who lend us a helping hand.
all right. Thanks a lot for elaborating on that. And no, interesting approach. Maybe stepping on the side of the business itself or the business idea itself for a second. Having had the experience or working experience you have now on your back from the previous years, and now having stepped into this new part of your journey as a founder, what's the maybe most unexpected challenge that has popped up right now? Or do you think more or less you know or predicted how this could have looked like?
I think the most unexpected challenge is to be the master of your own agenda.
Hmm.
There's many positive things to being a master of your own agenda, because when you're in corporate, your week is very much structured by specific regular meetings that you have, right? Be it a regular sales forecast with your team, then again a regular sales forecast with your manager, be it a regular team exchange, be it your one-to-ones that you have between manager and employees. So you have an extremely structured week. And then the customer meetings come on top and you practically never have time to work. So this is what happens very much if you're in a corporate environment. And then in the first weeks, especially that we're not yet live, I sat there and I had an empty calendar and I thought, well, what do I do today? Where do I start? Right.
Right.
And obviously now that we are further and speaking to a lot of people, it doesn't happen very often anymore that I have a day where I think, okay, what do I do today? Mostly it's, oh, I either have a meeting or I have to prepare something or I test something. But that was actually a huge challenge at the beginning. And I kind of went into a very similar to retirement mode.
Right.
I said, I need to have a theme for every day. I have marketing Monday. I have tour planning Tuesday, again, a marketing Wednesday, and finance Friday. So that at the beginning, where you just need to come a lot from yourself, where you first need to get people to talk to you and to get things going, I still have a structure and I have a way forward, and everything is also balanced so that I don't only do the marketing and the sales that I enjoy, but that I also do the things that are maybe not the most fun part, that they get done.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, indeed, you really need to deal with many sort of tasks and things that you were not. And that's the advantage of being on a um, corporate environment, and the bigger the corporate, where the better is in terms of it has its pros and cons. And again, I think we could then open there a additional 1 hour conversation, but you have at least the comfort of having processes established. You have your own playing room with your function that, of course, you grew up into with its own challenges and complexities, and need to dedicate a full-time job to bring that forward. But once you step out of that, then like you rightly mentioned, and thanks for sharing your experience on that, you really need to become the spider in the web, not only in your own function, but across different areas, like them or not like them.
Absolutely. One thing on my to-do list for August is to get our terms and conditions.
Mhm.
And this is something where I'm 100% sure in a corporate world, almost no one ever has to deal
Yeah,
with. You just
right.
have your T's and C's. They are just there. Maybe you like them, maybe you don't, but not your
Exactly.
business, right? You just have them. And I have to think of, oh my God, do I have an example somewhere? Who is a good lawyer who is qualified, but who also fits our budget that I can talk to? How much time do I need to plan into so that the T's and C's are ready for October? So these are the kind of things that you just never have to think about in a.
Mm. Yeah, no, fully right, fully right. Being aware of or mindful of the time. I would say after going through your journey and getting a better understanding of the business idea, how you want to move forward in the upcoming future, if you could look into Roadstory in the next 12 months, what kind of milestones you would really like to achieve to say, we've really moved on in the right direction?
I would like to achieve the go live. So that would be like the
Really
most
important.
important part. All right. I would like to achieve the first, let's say, 500 paying customers. That's
Right.
something that I want to achieve not in 12 months, but earlier. But still, this is an important milestone because we needed to make sure, are we on the right track with this B2C? Is this the way moving forward? And also to give us a big enough sample to judge, will it be more the highlight tours? Will it be more the themed tours? So this is important. This needs to happen maybe within the first half year after the go live. that
Right.
we have that. And I want to have for the first other areas in Germany, the point of interest database, mainly for the ones that are the goals for the Ruhr area, right? Where is the Ruhr area going on vacation when they make something which is more close to home? Well,
Uh-huh.
it's North Rhine-Westphalia. It's the North Sea shore in Niedersachsen.
Right.
It's to some part also Hessen with the Eifel. So all these areas definitely need to be covered with our POI database so that when we have people from the Ruhr area who know our app, they will also use it to the places that they go to.
Like you rightly said, I think right now it's all eyes and focus on the go live and ensuring to manage that in the most smooth way possible to be able really to get things on the road and moving, and from there, of course, keep building. But yeah, I I trust at least based on and I really see that how much you build on your on everything you've learned and grown in your career so far, that also with the partnership you've built with your co-founder, that you're really on a good stage to try to increase the likelihood that you really get there down the road in these 12 months. Maybe just a couple of closing questions. When in the podcast, I've gotten different sort of guests from bigger companies that are already, let's say, on a scaling up phase to really people that has just engage on their business idea, maybe for a couple of years only, but also recently a similar situation from founders at the beginning of the journey. Making this transition is always difficult and requires some courage to say, okay, I will step back from my career and engage with this that I'm fully believing in. What kind of advice do you give to those listening in, kind of thinking, "Huh, should I make the jump, not make the jump?"
I think that depends on bit where are you in your life and your career. If you're coming straight from university, I would say jump directly. You have no big things that you're responsible for, right? You probably have no children yet. You have no house to pay off. You have no other debts. So you're used to a very low key lifestyle and just jump, right? It will not be any harm to your career if you try out 1 or 2 years to be an entrepreneur. On the contrary, if you do that right after university and it works out, then you have a super fulfilling career path in front of you. And if it doesn't work out, trust me, corporate HR will find it positive that
Uh-huh.
you did something with so much energy and took your own responsibility. So if you are right after university and you have an idea and you think, oh, am I going to be an entrepreneur? Just try it out.
Uh-huh.
And if you're somewhere in your life where you're maybe a bit further, I always like to talk about myself as a late founder because in fact, I am a late founder, right? I'm
Uh-huh.
not in my 20s and also not in my 30s anymore, unfortunately. Then I would always recommend start it as a side hustle.
Right.
Start it as a side hustle and see how it performs and how the feedback is and how many people you get to work with you on your idea as a proof that your idea is valid and also as a proof for yourself. Do you actually enjoy being an entrepreneur? Because yes, it's a lot of on top. I mean, for me, it was a job that required more than 40 hours in corporate because it was a, well, position where I had some responsibilities plus family with children, plus the sidepreneur business, it's obviously super huge workload. But if you find that this huge workload doesn't feel like a workload, if the time that you spend on your side hustle is something that you really, really enjoy, plus you start to find people who work the way with you so that you get the feedback that your idea is well, then that's the point where you can say, do I have the financial means? Do I have the savings to jump? Do I have them? But that's what I would always recommend. Instead of not doing anything and saying, oh, I'm in my job and being an entrepreneur is just super complicated and many startups fails. I don't do it at all. Just try it out as a sidepreneur first.
Thank you very much, and thanks for the yeah open, honest, insightful answer. I would say, because again, it proves that you're building this based on your experience, but also I think really valuable advice. And I appreciated that not only for those in the earlier part of their careers, but even now, if they are already in a corporate environment with a couple more years responsibilities, I think Yeah, there is always a way. I think you just need to find the formula. You just need to find the formula. Continue the tradition that I'm following in the podcast now. I'm always asking the guest from the previous episode to leave a question for the next one.
Oh,
And the question that was left in this case was, if you could change something in your startup right now, what would that be?
I think it would be to work with more than two people only.
All right.
There are right now two people because obviously there's not the budget to hire someone. We have not yet found a third person that would match the co-founder team.
Right.
Yeah, we're not rejecting a third person in the founder team, but we just haven't found someone who would meet the same level of energy and way of working. So this is something, if I could change it just like that, then I would prefer to have a third and a fourth person in the team.
All right. Makes sense. Makes sense. And pretty sure you're gonna get there, but like you said, it's also a matter of not rushing, but even finding what's the right fit, right? Especially at this current phase. And to continue the chain, and please take your time, what would be maybe one question that you would like to leave for the upcoming guests to the podcast?
I would like to leave for the upcoming guest a question, which is actually it's a, let's say, twofold question.
All right.
It's your funding. And if this business that you do is a success and you start your next business, would you do it the same way again with the funding?
All right. For the next one, which comes in line, let's see what the answer is. We make sure that you get a hold of that. Just as a closing question, where can the listeners learn more about Roadstory's journey?
You can visit us on our website, which you will find in the notes, but also it's www.roadstory-audio.com. So there you can find more. And also, if you've listened to actually up this point, I presume that you find the idea interesting. If you want to learn more or even become a tester, because we're always looking for testers, then just drop me an email, which you will also find in the notes, which is melanie@roadstory-audio.com. Melanie spells with one L and IE at the end. So just drop me a mail if you say, oh, this sounds so interesting. And I'm going to have a vacation in the south of Poland in 3 months. Then just reach out to me and we will figure out how we can get you something to test.
Great. Then there you got the information, but also got the offer. So mentioned, if you would like to learn more, please do visit the website or get in contact with Melanie. I'm pretty sure that she's also looking forward to that. Melanie, thank you very much for everything that you've shared in today's episode. I really appreciate learning a lot from you, from your background, from your journey, your experience. So I was already really happy to get to know you when we had the introduction call some time ago. And I'm pretty sure that all those listening in were also able to get lots of insights from everything you've shared in the same way that I did. Thank you very much again for joining the podcast. I wish you all the best of successes for what it's ahead for you, for Thomas, for Roadstory, and looking forward to stay in touch.
Thank you for having me again. It was a real pleasure, Alonso. I really like the atmosphere and your good questions and your podcast, which creates value for those interested in business.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that comment. And big thanks again for those tuning in, and see you all in the next episode. Thank you very much. Bye bye.
If you enjoyed the conversation, I would really appreciate your support. So depending where you're listening to it, don't forget to follow or subscribe to the podcast and leave any questions or comments. Thanks again for tuning in, and see you in the next episode.